Hi, I'm Clint Strong and welcome to my video. Today we're going to be talking about several different topics. We're going to be taking some basic country progressions and learning how to play over them with a jazz feel, and we're going to be reharmonizing some of these basic progressions and learning some new chord voicings to play over them. We're also going to be learning some different licks over 3-6-2-5-1 progressions, 2-5-1 progressions, and just some licks on some static chords. And I'm going to tell you a little bit and show you a little bit about my picking technique, and we're going to play some tunes for you. So I hope that you'll enjoy the video, and let's get started by tuning up. Okay, here's my first string, E. The B string. The G string, D, A, and low E string. Okay, let's get started. All right, one of the first things that we're going to do in this video today is talk about some country progressions and how to play jazz over them. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I started out playing jazz and learning jazz tunes, and I played with a lot of jazz players in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, such as James Clay, Red Garland, Colin Bailey, and a lot of others. And so my background was predominantly straight-ahead jazz. So when I got the gig with Merle, it was a whole different transition for me, and I had to decide how I was going to go about still being able to be a jazz player and function in a country situation and still be able to play my style over the type of tunes and progressions that Merle does. And so anyway, we're going to talk about that on the video today, and I'm going to hopefully give you some insight into how I approach that subject. Okay, in this section we're going to talk about a basic common country progression. Actually, it's an old Bob Wills progression that he used on a lot of his tunes. And I'm going to try to show you a few of my ideas about playing over the basic changes and then expanding on that a little and moving towards more of a modern jazz feel over the old Bob Wills progression. So let's take a look at that now. Okay, now in your booklet you'll see the first set of changes labeled basic, and this is just the basic progression of the tune. And if I was going to play some rhythm or play these changes possibly behind a fiddle player or whoever might be soloing on the tune, I would probably use some straight chunkin' 4/4 rhythm, which is something like this: 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we're going to have the band play that type of a rhythm background for me, and I'm going to play a stock, basic solo over those changes. Okay, so there was the basic version. Now I'm going to show you a little bit more about how I would approach playing on a progression like this. And if you look in your booklet under the chord chart titled Variation, you'll see that basically the same chord changes are here, but we've added a 2 chord in front of each one of these dominant chords. So for instance, while we just had the E7 chord in the first progression, now we have a B minor to an E ninth, and where we had the A7 we have a E minor to an A13, and where we had the D7 we have an A minor to a D9, and then instead of a G6 we're using a G major 7. And now just instead of the G6 to a straight D7 chord, we're using a little leading move here, which is kind of similar to a 3-6-2-5-1, only it's a little bit more chromatic. We're going from a B minor 7 to a B flat diminished to an A minor 7 to a D9, and then once again one of those 2-5 moves. We have an E minor 9 to an A13, and then an A minor 7 to a D9. Once again the B minor 7 to the E9, E minor 9 to an A13, an A minor 7 to a D9, and then an F sharp minor 9 to a B7 augment, a B minor 7 to an E9, E minor 7 to an A13, and G major 7, A minor 7, D9, G major 7, G6. So this is just a little bit of a variation on the progression, and with this kind of harmony in our thinking, we can expand a little on what we're playing, even if the basic changes are still going on behind us. If we play over this type of a progression, then we can get a little bit more modern, a little bit more jazz sound, and it will shine right through, right over the basic chords. So now let us play a version with these changes for you. Okay, now we have the extended version of the chord changes, and we've just done a whole lot of alterations here, and there's various reasons why these things fit. Our first chord was an E7. Now we're going to change it to B minor 7 flat 5, E7 flat 9, which is kind of a 2-5 leading to our A9 chord. Then we're going to alter the A9 chord and make it an A7 flat 5 add 9, A minor 9, just the addition of the ninth tone instead of using just a straight A minor 7, and a D7 with a flat 9, and an F sharp major sharp 9 chord, and a G major 7 add 13, B minor 7, B flat diminish, A minor 7, D13, that part stays basically the same, E minor 9, and once again the altered A7, A13 with a, A7 with a flatted fifth, add 9, A minor 7, and now a little chromatic move, D sus, E flat sus, E sus, to E7 sharp 9 sharp 5, E minor 9, A7 flat 5 add 9, A minor 9, D13, B sus, B7 flat 5 flat 9, B minor 7 flat 5, E7 flat 9, A9, A7 flat 5, add 9, and then a B augmented, E7 sharp 9, A minor 7, or probably it would be better to use this sus here, to a A flat major 7 with a flatted fifth, to a G major 7. Now what we did here on this progression was we just added quite a few little chromatic moves and some alterations that are common amongst jazz players. You're probably not going to find this type of chordal harmony going on in too many country tunes or even being played over these basic progressions. You're more likely to find just the basic chords being played when you're talking about a country music type situation. But once again, let me reiterate that you can think in this way and play it over those basic changes and it will still come out fine, or at least it's worked for me so far. So anyway, let us play now the extended version of the tune for you, and we'll see what you think about that. All right, in this segment we're going to talk about playing over some static chords. In other words, just playing over one chord at a time. And we'll start with just playing a couple of licks over a G7 chord, G13 chord, just any type of G7 chord really. Not really an altered G7, but just the G7. Okay, and here's the first one. Okay, and here's another one. A little variation on it there. And there's another little variation on it. Okay, here's another one. Sometimes I use an augmented arpeggio to play over a static chord like a G7, and here's an example of that. Another thing that you can do when you're improvising over a dominant 7 chord is to play a major triad a whole step up, and this gives you your sharp 11 or your flat 5 tone, your 9 and your 13 or 6, and it gives you kind of that what I call the flat 5 sound. So and it doesn't just have to be dominant that you can use this over. You could also use it over a major 7 chord, and the major 7 doesn't have to include the flat 5, nor does the dominant 7 have to include the flat 5. You can just play this triad and you will create that sound, even though it may not be included in the voicing of the chord. So let's just play here's a G13 chord, and I'll play a little. there it is included in the chord. So that creates one type of sound, a little bit more out sounding. Probably don't want to use this one too much on your country gig. Now let's play it together, and I'll have you just comp a G13 chord for me. Kind of a... So, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's some examples of some of my lines over just a regular dominant chord. And basically most everything that I was playing there was pretty much a D minor 7 to a G7 type of sound, which would be a 2-5-1 or a 2-5 progression in C. So in a way, I'm playing around the tonal center of C and looking at the G13 as a 5 chord in the key of C. So the C scale and the D Dorian scale you can see I'm not really playing the scale very well because I don't really think of D Dorian when I'm playing. I think more of lines, but a lot of the lines are being created from a D Dorian. So that's the reason I wanted to mention it. Now let's talk about playing a few lines over a major 7 chord. Now these lines are some of my favorites to do because they're flexible. In other words, a line that will work over a G major 7 will also work over a lot of other things. Some examples are an E minor ninth and a C major 7 with a flatted fifth, because C major 7 is the 4 chord of the key of G, so we're really playing a C Lydian scale. But that C Lydian is still just a G major scale starting on the 4th. So you can think about it, approach thinking about it any way that you want to, and probably when you're playing, you won't be thinking about it at all. So let me show you a couple of lines over a major 7 chord. Here's one of my favorites that's kind of a Howard Roberts lick that I like to use a lot. Okay? Here's another one over a G major 7 chord. Now there I did the same line in a different position. And there's another, that brings up another important topic. You might want to think about taking some of these lines, especially the shorter ones that are easy to work with, and move them to different positions on the neck. Play them on different sets of strings, and try to use maybe some different fingerings, and just shift everything that you're learning here all over the guitar neck. Try to play it everywhere in all the positions, high and low and in the middle, and that will help you to be able to play them in different keys and to access them quickly when you may be playing in another position and want to play that line and not have to jump out of position to play it. Now let's play some over a major 7 chord, and I'll have you comp it just like we did the dominant chord. Okay, and so just 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's learn some licks over static minor chord. In other words, just playing one minor chord and holding it. We'll use E minor 7. Okay, and here's the first line. And here's another one. Okay, and here's another one. Okay, here's another one. And there I added some to it. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and have you comp some. You can play a E minor 9 voicing if you like, and I'll just play some lines over it. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. One of the questions that people ask me about a lot on the road, and students and whoever, they want to know about picking. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my picking style, and it's very basic. It is the down-up picking technique, or alternating picking technique, is what I use. And when I first started out playing, when I was about 9 years old, one of the first things that I learned was a little tip from my dad, and he said just to go over in the corner with my guitar and just pick each string individually, up and down and up, and however I wanted to do it. So I'd just get in the corner and just play it like this. And then I would alternate between the different strings. Now, a little exercise that I use for this technique and to help to improve on it is this right here. A downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. Downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. And you play that same thing up and down the strings, and it would probably be best if you use a metronome to keep some kind of rhythmic continuity going on. So for instance, if we had a metronome going here, we could set it and have it clicking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And you want to try to stay on the tips of your fingers and play in the middle of the frets. And of course you can do all kinds of variations on this. You can, for instance, just pick a combination of fingers, like for instance 1 and 4. Or 1 and 2. Any kind of combinations or variations that you want to do on that are fine. But if you'll practice each day a little bit on this, doesn't take a whole lot of time before your technique starts to improve, and you can get to where you can do it really quickly. And then of course once you've got that down, then you can start practicing your scales, arpeggios, intervals, whatever kind of exercises you'd like to practice with the down-up picking technique. Now I'm going to show you a major scale, and let's look at how the down-up picking technique affects that. Here's a G major scale, and we'll start it with a downstroke. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay, so we had a downstroke on the 5th string and an upstroke on the 4th string. So sometimes when you're utilizing this technique, you're going to run into that. You'll be shifting strings maybe with an upstroke, but it still keeps its same pattern. Down, up, 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 down. And the same thing when you're coming back down the scale. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and so on. And it seems to work real well for me. I use it in most everything that I'm playing. Of course there's exceptions, but most of the time it's straight down up picking, and I use of course slurs and accents and hammer-ons and pull-offs and dynamics, just like all players use those things. Now I'm not saying that my system of picking is the correct way to pick. I really personally don't believe that there's any correct way to pick. There's so many different styles and so many different things to learn from, pick from, and choose from that you can't say that any one of them is the correct way. But this is how I approach picking, so hopefully you can get some insight into how I'm getting my sound. In this section, I'm going to teach you a little bit about the 2-5-1 progression. Now, 2-5-1, in case anyone out there doesn't know, is the 2-chord, 5-chord, and the 1-chord of a harmonized major scale. So the 2-chord will be a minor 7, the 5-chord will be a dominant 7, and the 1-chord will be a major 7. Now here's some lines that will fit over a 2-5-1 in the key of B flat. The first chord will be a C minor 7 and an F dominant 7. In this case I'm using an F9. It could be some kind of an altered dominant. For just one instance, maybe an F7 with a flatted 9 to a B flat major 7. And there's a B flat 6. So anyway, here's the first line. And here it is slowed down. Okay, here's another line that'll fit over those same chords. Okay, here's another line. Okay, now one of the things that I like to do when I run into these 2-5-1 progressions, which incidentally is all the time in whatever style of music that I'm playing, is to add a dominant 7 chord a half step above the chord that I'm resolving to, which would be the 1. And I usually put a 2 chord in front of that one too. So now let's alter our 2-5-1 changes a little bit and look at that progression. So the chords will be C minor, in this case I'm using a C minor 9, to an F9, to a G flat minor 9, to a B13, okay, and here's a line that would fit over those chords. Okay, here's a line, another line over the same progression, and this is a borrowed one from a good friend of mine, Don Mock's book, Hot Licks. That's an example of a perfect line over those changes. Okay, now here's one that's kind of one of my own, I think. Okay, now let's go back to the regular 2-5-1 progression, and we're in the key of B flat. So once again, the chords are C minor 7, F9, or some kind of an altered dominant 7. For instance, say F7 with a flatted 5th to B flat major 7. Here's another one over a 2-5-1. Okay, here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another one. Here's another lick over a 2-5-1 progression in B flat, which is C minor, F7, B flat. Okay, and let's slow it down and look at it here. Well, I'm alternate picking with my right hand, which is down up picking. Maybe we can get a look at that. All right, and in this part I'm doing a slur. And I'm doing a little move down here that's one of my favorites. And what it is that I slide down sometimes with my first finger. And I don't really know why I do that, or whether it's correct or incorrect, but I have a tendency to do it a lot. And I'll just, for instance, play you a lick on a major 7 chord where I utilize that move. Okay, now this lick is over a D major 7 chord. And I'll slow it down for you so that you can see everything I'm doing. Once again, I'm alternate picking, down, up, down, up. See that? It's weird, huh? But anyway, that's the way I do it. Okay, now we're going to talk about some lines that fit over turnaround progressions. And a turnaround progression is usually a 1-6-2-5 or a 3-6-2-5-1 progression. And the changes that I'm going to be using over the lines I'm going to be showing you are D minor 7, G7 with a sharp 5, or G7 flat 13, whichever they'd like to, and C minor 7, and F13 to a B flat major 7. Okay, now let's play those chords at another spot on the neck. Here it is again. D minor 7, G7 with a flatted 9, C minor 7, F7 with a flatted 9, and a B flat major 7. Okay, and here's the first line over a 3-6-2-5-1 progression. Okay, and you can notice some of the moves that I'm doing there in that line. For instance, the first part is a roll. Just pick it once and roll all those notes up and down. And a pull off there. And a pull off on that part. Okay, now here's another line that fits over the same chords. All right, here's another line that's basically built over a couple of chord arpeggios, and this will fit over the same chords. Okay, so here it is. Okay, here it is once again. And I'll slow it down for you. So if you look at the notes in that lick, you can see that the first chord is basically a D minor ninth, or a G sus, to a G augment to an F sus to an F augment 7. And if you wanted to resolve it to the B flat major 7, you might just play the same lick over a B flat major 7 arpeggio, and a good place to do it would be right here. So let's put that all together now and look at it as a whole lick. I'll do it one more time for you. Here's another line that fits over a 3-6-2-5-1. Okay, and I kind of switched my fingering position there, but I'll slow it down for you. As you can see, I'm kind of fiddling around with the phrasing, maybe changing a couple of notes here and there, doing my hammer-ons, my pull-offs in different places. And these are some things that you can do to give your lines character. You don't have to play them the same way every time, and with each one of these lines that I'm showing you, I would encourage you to try to alter them, change them, make them into your own lines, or just take parts of them and use them. You don't have to use the whole line or play it exactly the way I played it. These are just some little, hopefully helpful hints to help you get started playing jazz, bebop type lines that work through some of the common chord progressions that you'll find when you're playing standard tunes. Okay, here's another one. Okay, and this last note that I'm ending on is an E note, which would be a flat 5 in the key of B flat, which is the key that the line is working in. So you could play a B flat major 7 and find your 5th, which is the F note on the 2nd string, and lower it a fret, and then you have a B flat major 7 with a flat 5, and so the gives you a little bit more of a modern sound, kind of outside, not really too outside. Here's another one that fits over a 3-6-2-5-1, and I'll play it for you a couple of times and we'll play it together. Okay, now let's play it together. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's another lick that'll fit over a 3-6-2-5-1 progression. Okay, so there's some of my basic ideas on 3-6-2-5-1s, and I hope that you get something out of those and that you're able to get some of them or parts of them into your playing. And once again, I want to stress that it's not important for you to play the lick exactly the way that I played it. What is important is that you understand the concept of what's happening inside the line, and that the line is being built off of the chord changes. And hopefully through seeing some of my lines, it'll give you some help with building your own. So good luck. When I first started playing, I was 9 years old, and my dad took me to a Howard Roberts guitar seminar in Oklahoma City, and I think that's what really inspired me to go on and really practice and try to learn how to play. And just the way he approached learning and playing and teaching and everything was really a great inspiration to me, and it still is. And he was just my greatest inspiration, I guess you could say. And my dad, too. Both Howard and my dad. And my style is really not my style, if I even have a style. It's just a combination of people that I've listened to. You know, Bird, Miles, Lester Young, Howard, Wes, Joe Henderson, Woody Shaw, James Clay, Red Garland, John Coltrane, Philly Joe Jones, all those people. All the people in the jazz community, in every level of jazz, from the very beginnings, or at least whatever I've heard from the beginning to right now, is still a big influence on me. I listen to a lot of music and copy a lot. There's no way you can measure how much work it actually takes, but let's just say it's a lifetime commitment, you know, and what you put in is what you'll get out. So the more that you can practice and the more that you can listen and absorb and try to be around great players and learn from them, the better off you're going to be, you know. And that is including after you maybe get a good gig, you know, you still are on that road, and it's a never-ending road. I think for one thing, a lot of guitar players seem to be just super lick oriented. Now, I don't want to make the mistake of anybody misinterpreting this as licks are bad, because licks are great and you need to have a lot of them. But I think it'd be a good idea for some of them to learn some tunes, you know, and learn how to put the licks into tunes, learn the melodies, and maybe even learn the words. Merle has gotten me into recently learning the words to every tune that I know, and trying to play a picture of the song, you know, and especially behind a singer. And it really does work. He's really right about it. And so anyway, I have Merle to thank for a lot of things. He has exposed me to a lot of things musically that had I not gotten with him, I probably would not have been exposed to, you know. And some of those are like Roy Nichols and Grady Martin, and playing with Merle and Willie Nelson and Johnny Gimbel, and a lot of those great players that are in the country field who sometimes don't get recognized in the jazz world, but believe me, there are some heavy ones out there that can play jazz, and they just happen to be in the country field. When I started out playing, my dad had an ES-175, and that was of course, the first guitar I ever had was a $25 Harmony. But anyway, and the next one was a Telecaster. And then I went to that ES-175, and from then on, for about the next 8-10 years, I played nothing but big boxes. So I had the 175, and then I had a Howard Roberts model Epiphone, which I still have. It's a great guitar, wonderful. Then I bought a Les Paul, and I've had this one for about 12 years, and it's just recently been reworked by Joe Glazer in Nashville, and he did a really fine fret job for me, and put on some new pickup covers. This back pickup had a hole in it where I rest my hand here. It had eaten right through the cover. And he put a new bridge on and refinished the back of the neck, and he did really a fine job on it, I think. This was completely worn off. It was just brown wood. When you play? I use a Peavey. I use two Session 500s. And then I have an amp at home that I really like. It's called a Jim Kelly, and it's a tube-type amp, and it's really nice. And then I have a rack at home, and I have a MIDI guitar system. And so I'm experimenting with sequencers and computers and all that good stuff, you know. Okay, the pick that I use is also a Gibson, and it's a heavy teardrop, not the little teardrop, but the medium size, or the large size teardrop, I guess you'd call it. And then my strings, I endorse Ernie Ball, and so they take care of my strings for me, and I use the the 10 through whatever it is. I think it's 46. So they're pretty light gauge strings. You know, you can bend them, and but you can still get a pretty good jazz tone out of them. Well, I want to thank everyone for watching my video and being a part of it, and I hope that it helped you to get some insight into how I play and how I approach the different ideas that we talked about, and hope that it'll help you on your gig or in your teaching or whatever purpose you might be using it for. Also, I'd like to thank Don Mock and Roger Hutchinson for all their hard work. I'd also like to thank Chuck Deerdorf for playing the bass, John Bishop for playing the drums, and Mark Seals for playing the piano. And I'd like to thank my mom and dad and Merle as well. And I'd like to dedicate the video to my wife and my new 3-month-old son, CJ. And hopefully we'll see you guys and girls down the road. And good luck with your music. Bye.